All right, everyone. Thank you once again for joining us on Exit Your Way Live. With me today, I've got Jordan Mendoza. Thanks for being here, Jordan.
Hey, hey, everybody. Hope you all are doing well. Damon, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's awesome for us to finally get here and talk a little bit. Honestly, we were talking before this, and we probably could have talked an hour and then got on live and talked for our time as well. But it's awesome to get you on, Jordan. I mean, I didn't go back and see when we actually connected, but it's been a while, and it's been cool to watch your progression over the last year and a half or whatever it is that we've known each other on LinkedIn, and see your audience grow. And then you start your podcast and how that changed what was happening. And really, up until recently, and you're voted, what was it, the third most influential Filipino on LinkedIn.
Yeah, on LinkedIn for inspiration and learning.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. So, I mean, let's just start there. I mean, did you ever think that in your life is that would just happen to you?
No, absolutely not. No, no. I mean, I think in school, I probably would have been the third most likely person not to ever get a job. That probably would have been
Yeah. Yeah.
me in high school. So yeah, to get that type of recognition by a prestigious magazine, Marketing in Asia. I mean, it's such an honor. I'm humbled, and my father's from the Philippines, and I was very fortunate at 16 to be able to go to that beautiful country for the first time and experience so much for 3 months, and from landing in Manila and walking outside to the terminal and seeing so many people and vehicles, and they have these vehicles called jeepneys. They're like a 20, 25 passenger Jeep, and a bunch of people came out, and they were all related to me, and I didn't know any of them, so having an experience like that and meeting family for the first time in a new world, it was a culture shock for me, right? Going there, and then when you navigate through the city, it's very similar to a standard city, but when you get outside of the city, the roads get a little smaller, and then people are actually playing chicken with the like vehicles to share the road. So if you, it's like, all right, well, who's gonna go, and then you have to move over, or they're gonna hit you, and there are some farm animals that just are crossing, so it gets very treacherous. And then, we actually had to take an 8-hour journey from the airport to the village where my grandparents lived. And it was only about 150 miles, but you can imagine, Damon, the terrain to have to take 8 hours to get there. And so you're going, because
the island, it's not that big. The 8-hour driving.
We are, very, very far up north in Luzon. Luzon is the main island where Manila is. But so 8 hours north of there is where I went, and so I get into this village, and it was like, a scene out of the Jungle Book, right? Those same types of trees and mangoes and all these fruits that I wasn't used to seeing, right? I didn't see this where I grew up in the Pacific Northwest. I grew up in Portland. And so it was all a really, really cool experience. But I soon realized that, these people didn't have a whole lot of money, but everybody was happy. I learned that at 16 that, like, man, these people they don't have much at all. I could come with what I thought maybe $5, and they'd be so excited because they could get so much with that, and so I learned a lot while I was there, especially getting back and going into the place where I actually grew up really poor, but it didn't seem like it when I got back, So that was a really cool experience to have that. And so to get an honor like this, especially being able to go there, and I went again for a family reunion in 2003, and I got to meet 400 family members. My grandma and grandpa both had, I think, 13 and 14 brothers and sisters, and so I mean, just tons and tons of family I got to meet then. And so to get recognized, to be the top 3, for inspiration learning. I mean, if I don't know who would not be honored by that, it's, and I would never have guessed that would be something that would happen ever, so.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool, man. And it's a great story too. It is. And I think you bring up something that I think about a lot. And that is, in our lives, we get so caught up about a lot of things, whether it's the car I drive, from am I good enough to do I have the latest phone, or I don't know, just all these kind of things. And when you really break it down, the family and friends and just being healthy is so much farther than the rest of the world. And I think that's what they really understand in some of these places where they don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
And I grew up on a farm in South Dakota. So picture this. It was 100 miles, I think, to the nearest mall.
Yeah.
And, stoplights and stuff. And at that point, we didn't have much money, but we never knew it. It didn't cross our mind whether you had money or not, because you always had, you had food, you had some clothes, and you had your family. And that's really, I think, what you may have seen. And it's
100%.
You saw that. It's like,
I mean, I'll give you some context here. I mean, I show up, and the house is called an abagatan, and I believe it's, the old house or something like that is what the translation is. But I get there and I'm like, hey, can I have a glass of water? And they're like, yeah, you got to go outside to the pump and you take the glass and then you pump the water. And I was like, all right, this is interesting. So I go out and I start doing it. And of course, I don't know if you've done that before, but the first time you do it, nothing happens, and so I'm like, am I doing this right? And you do it a few times and then there's water, so you got to work for it. Work for the water. It doesn't taste great. It didn't taste that great either, coming straight from the well like that. But I was like, wow, like this is different, and then when I found out the shower system, which was, there was a big bucket, and then there was a little bucket, and then you took the little bucket and you scooped up some water from the big bucket and dumped it over your head right there. That was that was the shower, And so being able to experience things like that, for me, I was 16, so I had been to summer camp, so it kind of had that feel to it, like you were at camp. But this was their life. Like, this is how they lived, This is their livelihood. So yeah, when you get to experience some of those things, you definitely become grateful. It changes the lens that you view life through, right? When you go through an experience like that.
Yeah. That's so awesome. I mean, just because the family connection that you must have built, and then being able to go back and reinforce it and build it even further. And now you've got that.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Powerful, sure.
That's very cool. But we've got Kenneth is on here today. Good to see you, Kenneth.
Kenneth, how are you, buddy?
Yep. And Andrew was on, my partner Andrew. He couldn't join us today. He was on earlier. And then we've got, I can't pronounce his name, but it's good. And he's asking about your background. I don't know what that is.
Oh, you talking about the toys behind me?
Yeah.
I've got, you know who this guy is, right? We've got Sean Alexander.
Yep.
Right. Yep. Seattle's former Seahawk.
I was there the putrid year that we lost.
Yeah. And of course the kid.
Yep.
And Griffey Jr. I've got some Michael Jordan, I've got a bunch of collectibles. I've collected things for, cards, whether it's cards or these type of figures behind me, or sneakers. Like, those are hobbies that I've always had since I was in high school. So I will get them, and then I'll sell stuff, and then I'll get stuff. But a lot of the stuff behind me, I've had it for quite a while. So
nice. Nice. Yeah, and that's one of the things you said. You grew up in Portland, so that's an interesting city for people that haven't been there. It's
Yeah.
it's pretty as heck in the summertime. The weather's really nice, but big basketball at the time.
Yep.
You were probably there.
Yeah, big basketball city. Got Clyde the Glide behind me. Clyde the Glide wrestler. So those are the days that I really watched and went to a lot of games at the Memorial Coliseum with my grandmother and my mom. Watching Terry Porter, Clyde the Glide, Jerome Kersey, Buck Williams, Uncle Cliffy. Some of these guys have passed away, not in the recent years. Jerome Kersey, but that was the time when it was, Blazer Mania, Rip City. I don't know if you remember that they had a song and everything. So, but I was actually on the news. I think I was 11, maybe. I was in front of the Fox Theater and had my like a Blazer starter jacket on, and the news happened to be there, and they interviewed me, and I was like, "The Blazers are neat." That's all I said, So I had my chance at fame, and I failed. So,
yeah.
It's all good. It's all good.
And Andrew wants to know if you know Mike Rice.
Mike Rice. I don't think so. I don't believe so.
I don't know who Mike Rice is, so I couldn't help you there. Yeah, it is. I mean, I remember that in time because that had to be. What year was that about when they were?
That was in the 80s, 90s, late 80s, 90s. Yeah.
My roommate in college, when he graduated, he moved to Portland and went to optometry school out here. And it was when it was at the peak of craziness. And he used to tell me about that. And I've had relatives that live there forever, but he would go to a lot of games. So yeah, it's good stuff.
That was big in Portland. My family was also big into wrestling. So Portland wrestling was like, the local wrestling, and a lot of the guys like The Rock's dad, he wrestled there. Ric Flair, Lex Luger, Sting. A lot of these guys from before they got big, they all went through Portland wrestling. So it was kind of cool as a kid to like be there. I couldn't even see over the ring, had to stand on a chair on somebody's shoulders. But I remember, being there and just kind of walking through and experiencing that as a kid,
Well, that's funny you say that, because growing up in the Dakotas, we had the Minneapolis wrestling, and that was big with I can't remember the announcer guy was something, but I remember Hulk Hogan when he was just starting out, and he had, super, because he was a freak when that started. Yeah, as big as he was at that time. But okay, here. This is Andrew says Jordan, crazy Mike Rice, the announcer for the Blazers.
Oh, yes. Okay. You had to say crazy. I wouldn't have known it was crazy.
Yeah, crazy Mike Rice. Yeah. So that's cool. That's cool. The wrestling in there, and then just being able to, understand what Seahawks football is like, and really what that's all about. I mean, nice.
My mom, she was big into sports. She, I don't know if you know her story, but she was born with one lung, and so when she was born in 1958, the doctors basically said, hey, listen, to my grandmother, she's probably not going to live past 18. She definitely won't have any kids. Like, that was kind of the hand that she got dealt, and she ended up, of course, finishing high school in Portland, in 76. Of course, the Blazers win in 77. They win the championship. So she was, 18, 19 when that was happening. She's been a Blazers fan ever. She was a Blazers fan back then, and so she got us all into sports. And, even though she had one lung, she didn't live and, look at it as this ailment. She still made sure that she took care of us. We didn't have a whole lot. We were definitely poor, food. I remember using food stamps as currency. That wasn't an exciting thing to do, but you had to do it, and collecting cans if we wanted candy, doing all those things. But, those experiences, I think, they, as I got older and started actually making money and seeing the value of what it was worth, it was like, wow, I don't really need a whole lot to,
Yeah.
I don't need a whole lot. I just kind of can live. And when you can learn that mindset, I think at a young age, it definitely helps you as you move down the road,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, she was big into sports. Blazer, fan, of course, and Seahawks fan,
Yeah.
Oregon Duck fan. I mean, those were her teams, and she was loud and proud, and got us all into playing sports. I actually preferred to like do the fundraising over the playing, when
Yeah.
it came to baseball and soccer, because I just like talking to people ever since I was little. So I would rather do the sales, and I'd be kind of just picking the weeds and looking for stuff in the sky when I was playing. I wasn't really paying attention to the game.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff. And that's great that, the example that your mom set is something I'm sure, will stay with you forever, and you'll pass that on to your children as well.
Yeah, 100%.
And
Yeah, just your strength, man, and positivity and being optimistic, and she lived to be 54, and so they said 18, she said skip that, I'm just gonna, I'll show
yeah.
you. And she ended up having 5 boys. She wasn't supposed to have any kids, so I mean, all of these things are just miracles in their own right. And then and so
Yeah.
before she passed away, I got to meet most of her grandkids. Of course, we've had more since then
Yeah. Yeah.
as well. But yeah, man, she just you learn a lot, right?
Yeah.
People leave clues, right? And some
Yeah.
are good, some are bad, and we get to choose which ones we're going to follow. But if if I want to say who had the biggest impact, it's definitely my mom. I actually didn't meet my
Yeah.
dad until I was 12.
Okay.
And so that was a whole crazy journey and experience. One day, my mom says, "Hey, do you want to go out to Washington D.C. and meet your dad?" And I was like, I don't know what to say, but
Yeah.
of course I said yes. And so I flew, by myself from Portland to Minneapolis, St. Paul. I remember it like it was
Yeah.
yesterday. From there to Washington National Airport, and I land, and there's my dad and my stepmom and my brother that I didn't know, never met before, and I'm meeting these people for the first time. And so it was a weird experience, right, at first,
Mhm.
but and then kind of getting to know them and learning about culture and meeting my grandparents. They came from the Philippines to DC, so I got to meet them during that summer, and spending a couple months with them. It was really cool to start to see that side of this whole other culture, right? Because I grew up with my mom. My mom was Irish and Chippewa Indian, so
Yeah.
I've got a very eclectic mix. We
Yeah.
actually, my great grandmother was, born on the reservation in Montana. So we actually, when my mom passed away, all of us boys inherited 20 acres each in Roosevelt County, Montana. So I'm pretty excited about that. We want to build a house out there and just have this be kind of a, you
Yeah.
know, family vacation property. So that's it's nice that those types of things can get passed down, and of course we'll be able to leave that for my kids. So that's an exciting piece of heritage. So I don't know much about the Irish side, but like the Native American and the Filipino sides, I know a lot more just
Yeah.
from the family ties and things like that. But it's definitely cool to learn about your culture and some of the things that people had to go through and sacrifice in order to get to where they are. Learning about those journeys, because some of that runs in your veins. That runs in your blood, and you can kind of see that stuff come out in you.
Yeah. That's for sure. That's for sure. Because I mean, knowing you and seeing what you're doing with your life now, uh, I understand, how your mom. I can see how she played into that. Is what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
and to teach you those things, because you don't just do what you do without having a real strong work ethic and a family ethic behind you, and a family focus, I should say, um, to do what you do. I mean, you've got 5 children now.
5, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Believe it or not, we have 5, right? So we have 3 boys and 2 girls, and our youngest is 5 months. The next oldest, and these are both boys, is 4. And then the girls are 9 and 12, and our oldest, believe it or not, will be 16 on December the 30th. So, so yeah, we've got them kind of all over the spectrum. So if you've got if you're a parent and you're watching this and you have maybe 1 child or maybe you've got 2 and you've got an issue with them, just add a couple more problems and that's what our life's like. So it's not, it doesn't, having more, some people are like, well, you got more, you got helper. I'm like, well, they kind of help, when they want to, when they're, incentivized, right? I don't think there's not many kids are like, hey, what can I do to help you out? Like it doesn't typically work like that, but that's good wishful thinking. I do wish that sometimes though, right? I wish that would take place. So
yeah, that's for sure. Well, I grew up as you did, with 5 in the family. I had 3 brothers and a sister, so not quite 4 brothers like you. But where are you at in with your brothers?
I'm the second oldest. So actually, I have a total of 6 because my dad remarried, so I've got 2 more. So yeah, a total of 6 brothers. So
oh man, 6 brothers! Wow. So that I tell you what, it's funny because I just giggle about it because you and I understand what it's like growing up with 6 brothers, right? Or with a bunch of brothers, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Because you grew up with one other brother or another sibling, and that's something. But when you grow up with a troop like that, man, the stuff that you get into when you're under the age of like 14, the times, because like I don't know if you guys were into riding bikes and all that kind of stuff, or just hanging out playing baseball and stuff like that.
We did a lot of the on our street. We lived on Russell Street, and on our street we played a lot of wiffle ball. So we set up the bases and play wiffle ball. We'd play football, tackle football in the street because that was a good idea. Or we'd go on Thanksgiving, we'd just pouring down rain as it does in Portland 6 months out of the year, and we're playing football in the mud. It's just those are the types of things that you do, and you don't really mind what season it is, because it's always hoodie season, in Oregon it's always hoodie season. So that is, it's like 11 months out of the year. Yep.
So did your mom have a lot of trips to the ER, or were you guys pretty safe?
No, she definitely had a lot of trips to the hospital, man. For sure. But not from us though, from her, because of her.
No, I was talking about the boys.
No. Yeah, well, no, she definitely did. I'm trying to think, and I'm like, yep, that knucklehead fell off the escalator at the mall. Yep, that happened. Okay. I broke my younger brother's leg accidentally when I was, I did that by accident. So there definitely were crazy things, especially with boys. It's like, and we watch wrestling. It's like, they're almost encouraging us to fight. I almost felt like they were teaching us how to fight, So it's definitely bound to happen, right?
Yeah. Well, going back to the fighting thing, my parents actually bought us boxing gloves one Christmas.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, it was not good. And they remained for a lot of years. And nobody had to go to the hospital for that. But I always tell people, because knowing this with the brothers, you understand it. My mother actually got so comfortable with us breaking a leg. If there wasn't a bone sticking out, she was going to go get cleaned up and get ready before she took us to the emergency room. And I literally saw her do it to my brother one time, broke his arm clean, made him lay it on a breadboard and taped it down and said, I'm going to go get ready. And you just stay here until I come back.
Wow.
But it's that's another thing. But it's awesome that the big family that you grew up with. I mean, you got to feel a lot of that now. And it's how are you guys live regionally? Are you?
Yeah, I'm on the East Coast, and my 4 brothers are out in Portland still. So it's definitely nice. We go out there, they come out here, and so we kind of do the back and forth visiting thing. So we haven't really found like a central place to meet in the middle of the U.S. yet, but you know, I don't think we really need it. And man, with technology now, like we have played more Yahtzee in 2020 than we did the previous 15 years because we did it virtually. We did it, you know, virtually through Zoom. We played family Yahtzee games and we hung out and, you know, we got to laugh and, you know, I mean, so if you want to be disconnected, you can be disconnected. But if you want to be connected, you can be connected. And so we all have a choice. And listen, I don't knock anyone from not wanting to, you know, wanting to stay disconnected. But you know, you just figure out what works for you and your situation, and then you roll with it, right? I mean, that's the best any of us can do, especially, you know, we are in a time that has nothing like this has occurred. Right. So it's new for everybody. Everybody's navigating the same water. So I think, you know, once we can understand that, and you can inject that type of empathy in your business, right, in your relationships, in your passerby moments with other people, the better, you know, because everybody's on the same playing field.
Yeah, that's for sure. And now you over the past couple of years, I mean, this year you started a podcast, and we'll talk about that again in a minute, but you really started coming on LinkedIn in force like last 18 months ago, or how long ago when you really started not taking off, but started putting the effort into LinkedIn?
Well, you can just say, hey, when did you start showing up, right, Damon? Because that's
what it was.
I wasn't showing up, you know, and
I
didn't know that I could. I didn't have I wasn't, you know, listen, I've got a lot of energy and I can teach and I've done all these things, but not everybody's always going to crush it the first time they look into a camera and you know, and you're speaking. And listen, I learned that really, really quickly, that I needed to work. I needed to get better. And, you know, so looking back at that and then, you know, identifying areas where you've grown, I mean, that's what life's all about, right? It's seeing like, hey, how am I the same as I was last year, or am I different, right? And I think looking at it at scale versus it like today versus tomorrow is definitely, you know, a lot better. You're going to get a lot more realistic view, right? Because you know, day to day you can see growth, but year over year you can see a lot of exponential growth. But you really took other people, you know, Brian Schulman, I think, you know, LinkedIn. So I mean, that guy is a long distance mentor for me. He would hop on a call with me and say, man, why aren't you creating videos? Like people need to hear what you have to say. And so he put the confidence in me that was probably there, but I didn't see it. And he was able to extract that. And he said, listen, you don't understand. You're going to have a bigger brand than me. Like these are what words are powerful, people. Right. And he plugged these words into my head and I believed him for some reason. And so I started showing up and creating, and I'll be honest, the first video I posted, I did go back every 2 seconds to see who viewed it. And there was 5 views. They were all me, Damon. It was me every time going back. And I was so worried about the metrics. And then I was like, all right, Jordan, just create, just focus on what you can talk about, right? I don't ever want to go on LinkedIn and try to sell a product or service. I do want to teach. I do want to train and coach and mentor. I want to do all of that, right? If a transaction or a relationship develops down the road, that's fantastic, because that's what life's all about, right? But my intention is to go and talk about an area I have expertise in and try to help somebody, right? Because if I can impact at least one person, you know, a day, and this is something Brian Schulman really gave me this lens to look through, is that was his mission. I want to inspire one person a day. That's 365 people a year.
Yeah.
And if you look at it through that and you reach more than one a day, then you can just continue to expand and double it and triple it. And so, you know, when I started creating content, and it would have all these people actually spending their time, taking time out of their day to thoughtfully comment on something that I did, I learned really quickly that I needed to respond and say, wow, thank you, or have another sidebar conversation, because that was what I learned to love, was actually what was happening in the comment section. I was way more invested in that than who actually viewed it or anything like that, because that's where the relationships get built. That's where the conversations can happen. You know, there's a lot of things that can happen there. And I've learned a lot there too. Like, hey, someone gave me their opinion. I'm like, wow, I didn't think about it that way. You know, so it's changed my perspective. I've also had trolls come on my content and took offense to it, like I probably should, but I learned that I shouldn't, you know. So we go through all these things and these points. And so my journey was learning every day, like learning about, all right, I put this content out, I asked this question, this was the type of response, this is the type of impact this is, you know. And so you started kind of looking at that. And then before I knew it, December, this was in April, and December rolls around and I had amassed 20,000 followers. And I was so blown away because I was like, man, that's like more than can fit in the Moda Center, the former Rose Garden in Portland. Like that's more than, and so when I put that and I quantified that, I was humbled and honored and blown away. I'm like, where did all these people come from? You know, like what is so interesting about, you know, the content. So and still to this day, I'm like, man, I still don't get it sometimes. You know, you're like, where's everybody finding this at, right? But it kept growing, you know, and I decided to launch a podcast, and that had so much support, and you know, getting guests from people that I had connected from on LinkedIn, and then having other people introduce me. And I remember the early days of the show where I'm really doing a lot of cold calling and DMing people on Instagram and on LinkedIn, and then now I have publicists that send me their clients to come on the show, and people that send me people, and so now it's harder to meet, right? So that I've just loved the journey and kind of going through all of this because I've grown a lot. I know we kind of talked off air, but I feel like I've got a PhD in so many topics because through the creating my own content and seeing that support is kind of one end of the spectrum, but and then, you know, creating content with a guest and having that conversation, and you've heard the show. So the whole goal of the show is to take a dive into someone's journey from birth and then and you come back to today, right? Because we learn so much from other people's stories and from their journeys. We have that emotional connection to them once we learn that. And so when we hear about who they are from the front facing perspective, it's like, wow, that's awesome too, you know. But it's really about who they are, you know. And so that's kind of what I love about it, is I get to learn from, you know, through their journeys. And one thing that's unique, Damon, I don't know if you knew this about the show, is I don't do any scripting. I do nothing. I literally say, all right, we're going to rock and roll. And I freestyle. The entire interviews are freestyled, and my questions are based off their response.
Yes.
It triggers what I'm going to say. You see what I'm saying? And so I love it that way because I love organic. Like right now, we're having this organic. I'm in my basement in Atlanta, and you're out in the Pacific Northwest, right? And I mean, we get to have this conversation organically, and that's really where the magic happens.
Exactly.
Right? When we're just having a conversation versus, you know, I've had some that I've been a guest on, and I'm like, man, this is an application process here. You know, this is a lot of work I'm doing to get on here. I just thought I just wanted the microphone and the headset. You know, that's what I enjoy, just jumping on. You know, but I get it. Everybody's different. I got to, you know, respect the process, but I'm just more of a just go with the flow, you know, freestyle type of guy. So
yeah, that's great because, man, I just giggle and grin when I hear you talking about your podcast, because I started a long time after you did, obviously, but I've had a similar experience. Every time I meet somebody, even sitting here with you, and we've talked before and other things, but every time I meet someone, you learn more about them. You get to understand who they are and what they're about, and you really get that. And man, that just gets me so fired up. I want to go and get the next guest on, and I want to talk to them because I want to learn from them, and I want everybody else to see how cool they are and why they're special and all that. And it is just a blast.
Yeah, no, and I agree, man. And, you know, and then just learning, right? Because you start to see the things that you want to adopt or plug into your business, it starts adding value, and you're like, wow, what they talked about works, right? So you become an even bigger promoter of the guests, because it's like, wow, they added so much value in this time for me, and I've learned, and now I'm using this information and I'm executing it. I'm applying it to my world, and I'm having results with it.
Yeah.
And so it's such a cool process to be on that journey where you're learning as you're having fun at the same time.
No doubt. No doubt. So you've been, going to, we talked about your podcast and things like that. Now you've been, and this is honestly, that's the only note I wrote down, is the one I'm just going to ask about. And that's what we started talking about before we get on. You've been in training and people in leadership and other types across a pretty large organization for a long time now. So yeah,
I'd love to tell you that journey, right? Because it didn't start here, right? It didn't start in leadership and teaching and training. I actually started as a resident in an apartment building, right? And people watching this or listening to this, if you've ever rented an apartment, right? That was me. I was just me and my wife and our 6-month-old were renters. And I went to get a package from the leasing office, and I did this often. I would go in and I would just talk to them, just because that's how I am. I just talk to everybody.
Yeah.
No matter who you are. It's just, I think when I was born, I just was already talking. That's what my mom told me anyway. But so I just would talk to them, and they're like, hey, have you ever thought about doing leasing? And I said, what is that? And do you offer benefits? And they're like, well, it's just, how we took you on the tour of the apartment and we showed you around and we pointed out these features and these benefits, and then we had you fill out the application, and then we called you and let you know you're right. So they just kind of walked through the steps, and I was like, yeah, like that's like sales. That's easy. I could do that. So I applied, and I remember the interview, and I remember it very distinctively, Damon, because I got the question that we always get, and it is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I remember my response, is the cocky 25-year-old that I was, well, I'd like to have your job. And the guy said, well, you don't even have this one yet, so don't get your hopes up. But he still hired me, so I guess he saw something. He saw something in me, right? Maybe he wished he would have said that in his interview. I don't know, but he saw something there, and so they did hire me, and I picked it up quick, man. I got promoted in 6 months from leasing apartments to becoming an assistant property manager, which I hated that job, Damon. I hated it. I'm not a numbers guy. I'm not a sit at the desk and type all day type of person. I need to be out and out and about and communicating, right? So I get this role, and I kid you not, I worked my tail off so that I could get promoted as fast as possible. I worked so hard, Damon, that I got assistant property manager of the year, and I hated every moment of the job. But nobody knew. Nobody knew, right? I was still smiling when I came to work. I had a goal. And so 9 months into the role, I get promoted to a property manager, right? This is, 16 months door to door, right? I mean, this doesn't happen in the industry. So it was crazy. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't. I literally thought I was getting fired this day. I got a call. They said, hey, can you come meet us at this community? It was the regional vice president and the regional manager. I was like, yep. I called my wife. I was like, hey, might want to get the newspaper out because I may be getting fired today. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I was there, and it was even more ominous because the person that worked there was not there when I arrived. I was like, oh, yep, I'm done. He's gone. I'm gone, and they said, hey, take a seat. And they said, hey, you've been doing a really great job. And you got, assistant property manager of the year, and we want to promote you to manager. And I was like, seriously? They're like, yeah, here's the keys, and you're going to do great. We'll see you later. And they left. And I'm sitting there, call my wife. She's like, you lost your job. Like, no, they promoted me. And, and I'm like, and I'm weird. I don't know what I'm doing. They gave me the keys. I'm here at this place. So I remember getting on the phone and calling people that managers I built a relationship with. I'm like, hey, I'm over here managing this place now. You don't know. No, congratulations, Ness. I just need to know how to do these reports. Like, I need to know how to do this because I did not know. It wasn't. And I think when we're put in those situations, when we're thrown into the wolves, as they say, sometimes that's the best thing that can happen to us, right? Because it's either you're gonna leave or you're just gonna step up to the plate and you're gonna figure things out, and be as resourceful as you can, and so that was my first community. It was very unique because it was a one-person community. So I was the leaser, the assistant, the manager. Thank goodness I knew the first two roles.
Yes.
I at least knew those ones, so I could do that. I was even sometimes had to go and use a plunger because I had one service technician. So I wore a lot of hats at that place, and it was was there almost maybe 10 months. I got promoted again to manage two communities. So now I've got, a 189 unit high rise built in 1942.
Oh
and
my.
I've got a 50 unit mid rise built in 98, in a very small pool that you and I would probably cover the whole distance of it standing there, so not a very big pool. No fitness center, no washers and dryers. There's, what I'm saying? So like very, very basic, sea level kind of places. So I'm managing these two communities, and man, I had employees now. That's different, right? That's different when you're now responsible for other people and managing those and the different personalities. And so, that was a big learning experience. I had some associates that I didn't get along with, and the ones that I did. And so you go through those experiences, and I was there for about 8 months, and then I got promoted again to manage the very first REIT property, a lease up in the state of Virginia. And man, when I tell you, going from those two communities, one thing I didn't mention is there were a lot of housing assistance programs. So I had all these reports. I had like 16 reports I was doing every month. I mean, all these things that, as you can probably tell, not my strength, right? Those things, I'm very, very self-aware. That's not what I'm good at. But I'm doing it, right? And I'm pushing through it. And so I get this promotion. And when I tell you, Damon, the community that I went to, it was like a vacation. No one lived there yet. It was brand new. And so we were just serving the traffic that would come in and leasing the building up. And we leased it up in a record time in 6 months, which was crazy. It was the fastest lease up ever, so I went through that experience, and then we end up making a move. We made a move down to Georgia. My wife was homesick, and so we moved down to Augusta. And so I actually left the company and found a job down there. I was essentially hired to come put out some fires on a community that was kind of going under, and a lot of drugs, a lot of riffraff, a lot of things like that. So I got hired. They had local police officers that worked with me to kind of get some of the stuff out, and so that was a crazy experience. And going and managing that. And there was an incident that actually happened at 3 or 4 in the morning. There were gunshots a couple buildings down. We actually lived, as part of the agreement, we were living on site, and we had 2 kids by this point. And that was the final straw, man. It was, someone broke in somewhere and shot somebody, and the guy was paralyzed. And so I resigned, and it was tough. I almost ended up, selling Mercedes. Like that was, I had the sales thing, right? And so I was looking for work, and that was the thing that was, I literally went through the training, and I was literally on the last day of training. And I remember the guy saying, hey, if you don't get the job here, would you have, $1,000 to pay if your car broke down tomorrow or something? And I remember I was so cocky. I was like, oh yeah, I would have that. I would have that money. And I'm driving back from this thing. And it was one of those stops where everybody stops and you just don't know what to do. And you try to swerve. And so I swerved and ran into a tree and a fence, and luckily no injuries. But I had that $1,000. I didn't have it anymore because I had to pay his $1,000 for this car, you know? So I was like, man, I can't keep my words on this. And so I was like, maybe that's a bad omen. Maybe I shouldn't be working there. And so I called the company back and I said, listen, this is what happened. Is there any way you can have a position for me? You know? And they said, don't worry about it. We'll find a spot for you here in Atlanta. So I went back to my old company. They had a spot for me. I was now managing the largest community in the portfolio, 558 units, a team of 17, right? So whole different experience managing a large group of people. And during that time, you know, that I was managing that community, things were going well. We were carrying the weight of the market. And then in November of 11, my mom got sick. And man, that was tough, man. That was a tough time in life. You know, thinking back to that time, you know, I had to fly to Portland a lot because I was, you know, even though I'm not the oldest, I was the one that was taking care of things. I'm the one that's, you know, been in the, you know, in the workforce, you know, all these things. And so it kind of all got put on my shoulders. There was a lot to carry on, and flying back to Portland and back. And so I look back and I'm like, man, you know, I got demoted, you know, because I was not performing well. I know I look back and I'm like, well, I know why I wasn't performing well. So
exactly.
But you know, those things happen. And I look back and I'm like, wow, it was still good because I did need relief. I did need less. You know, I needed less to have to focus on, because anyone that's ever had a parent, you know, who's sick, or a relative, it's a very trying time, especially with my mom. I was so close to her. We'd talk twice a day, you know, so to not be able to talk to her was like foreign, you know. It was not real. So that was a tough experience. And, you know, she passed away, man. I remember feeling like I hit rock bottom. Like my life was over. Like, what was I going to do? I don't have mom, you know. I remember feeling those emotions. And, you know, a handful of months later, a job opens up for a learning and development manager. And it's the same company, but in DC. It's going to bring us back to the DC area. So I apply for it, and I didn't think I was going to get it. You know, there's other candidates that have college degrees. I don't. So more qualified, you know, should probably have the role. And somehow I end up getting this role. And now I'm, you know, in the corporate environment that I've been in for the last 8 years. And so I get the opportunity to build training content and facilitate training. And I teach a 6-month leadership program that's predicated on MBTI, and we dive into strengths-based leadership and emotional intelligence, change management, conflict resolution, you know, how to manage high-performing teams. So I get to take people on a 6-month journey, and they have coaching sessions with me every single month. And, you know, to hear people say that their life has changed at the end of it. I mean, there's nothing better. There's no better feeling than to be able to have a transformative impact on someone, you know? And so, you know, I get so much out of that. And so I think, you know, that program really helped make LinkedIn a little easier, because I was used to doing that in front of an audience, speaking in 8-hour sessions, you know? So I was like, man, why am I so afraid to do this 1-minute clip, but I can sit there and speak for 8 hours in front of, you know, 20 people? What's wrong? What's happening here? You know, but listen, it's a different type of speaking, you know, it's different. So, but it's, you know, we all go through those journeys, man. We all go through, you know, experiences. And I can tell you that, you know, in Japan, they say teaching is learning twice. And so I feel like every time I'm teaching, I'm learning again, and that the content's becoming fresh in my mind, you know, and I get to keep carrying that on. But also we get to transfer that information to somebody else that will hopefully transfer it over to somebody else, right? And so it just keeps multiplying.
That's sure, yeah. Oh, that's cool. It's cool to hear your journey and how you came, you know, because it's about, as we talked about with your mother, excuse me, that work ethic, that you know, just going out and getting it done, that you watched her do. That's what you've done.
Yeah.
And that's so cool. I mean, it's so cool to see you do it, and then to see how it's evolved too. Even when you think about when she was ill and that, and how it in your career wise it set you back, but it probably grounded you and really opened the opportunity that was there for you for the last 8 years.
Yeah,
you probably wouldn't even thought about going to that other opportunity had you not had all the things not happen when your mother was ill. And you wouldn't have been in the situation to take the job that you have now.
Yeah, yeah, man. Everything definitely happens for for a reason, right? I mean,
it's scary, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so crazy too because having the show, right, is you become a lot more open, right, with people. You become more vulnerable, and so you start to share your stories and your experiences with people, and man, that's been a big unlock as well. Just kind of, because I've had some pivotal moments in my life when I was younger, and those experiences, when I look back and look at what the value of those experiences are, well, they're only valuable if I share. They're only valuable if people can hear them and hear what the experiences were like, right? So I've learned that I'm actually, harming the situation by not sharing it with other people. It's almost not giving it what it needs to actually have, because people find strength in it. I mean, we're in a day and age where there's so many bad things that are happening, but this isn't the first time that these things have occurred, right? These things have been, happening forever. We're just in a day and age where the information is accessible a lot quicker, at your fingertips. So, so yeah, man, I've found a lot of power in that, but that also, has had a lot of people that reach out. They're like, wow, thank you for sharing that. Like, I've went through something like this, right? And then that opens up conversation and dialogue, and you end up helping someone, or they end up helping you, right? So it's just amazing when you actually start to share more about who you are versus less,
Yeah, that is. It is. I tell you that. You just said it's only valuable if you share it and your experiences. And I wrote that down. And I'll tell you, if I get one thing from the podcast, people always see me, I'm sitting here writing like this, I started journaling this year. And I thought if you had talked to me 2 years ago and said, hey, you're going to be journaling, you're going to be, you're going to be visualizing, and you're going to have this morning routine you're doing, I would have said, you're full of shit. But now that I've done that, I listen to what you're saying, and I listen to the things that come out of you, and it resonates so much. You're exactly right, man. You have to let that out, because even the bad that you've experienced is valuable to someone else.
Yeah, 100%.
It just is. And we got Robert Murray here from Alaska, man.
Hey, Robert, how are you?
Yeah, good stuff. But it's incredible to get to sit down and talk to you. It really is. I just love it.
The honor is mine, man. I know we've been on some calls where there's been multiple people on the screen, but never a one-on-one face-to-face. So definitely been awesome.
Yeah. It's good stuff. Good stuff, man. Well, the next time I'm in Atlanta after this junk's over, we'll definitely get together, man. We've got a little bit of business to take care of. So what do you think the Seahawks, how they're going to end up this year?
Man, so looking at the rest of our schedule, I don't see too many more losses. So I mean, I definitely, I would love to, have the bye. That'd be ideal, right? To have that would be reminiscent of the Super Bowl year. So in the year after. So that would be awesome. But of course, playoffs. I mean, that's you definitely want to strive for that. But listen, I mean, the team has just been executing. I mean, you look at that game. You look at all the history that was made in it between Jamal Adams and the sacks that he's done, missing a couple games, and Russ has just been cooking, right? So you see all these things, and things are starting to come together at the best time. Yeah. We've got Dunlap coming back. We've got Rashad Penny coming back for the first time this year. So there's just a lot of pieces that are moving. Tyler Lockett is slowly approaching 1,000 yards, which is going to be the second guy. And between Hyde and Carson, and then getting a younger, fresh-legged Rashad Penny, I mean, we're looking good. And our tight end guys are looking good, with the exception of Olsen. That's just unfortunate what happened to him. But man, I'm always willing to talk Seattle Seahawks football. So
it's good stuff, man. And I always like to bring that in the end, because Ira's the Oakland Raiders fan, which I got to say, Oakland is doing well.
Oakland, they've got it. You know what? Their tight ends looking really great. Darren and Carr's playing well. Ruggs. I mean, they've got some talent there. And they do have a guy at the helms that has been known to to do some good coaching in John Gruden. So, they've got some good pieces in play. So,
it's good stuff. Well, Jordan, thanks so much for getting on today. And, it's just been a pleasure to talk to you and really let you share who you are a bit more and your story, man. It's awesome. I'm always inspired by your stuff. Love listening to your podcast. If people aren't now, get Blaze Your Own Trail podcast. If you hadn't checked it out, man, get on, listen. You won't be disappointed.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, season 3 is going to be released soon. The first 5 episodes will be available soon, so I'll probably post some content on all social media platforms. So thank you so much for having me, man. This has been great coming on, and I'll have to get you on my show.
Oh, that'd be awesome. You just tell me when, I'll be there. All right, man.
All right, man.
Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Thanks again, Jordan, and we'll be back on Thursday.
Thanks, everybody.